Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey podcast, Patience.
Hello everyone and welcome to Online Success Journey. This is episode 67, a very special episode with my co-host Greg Ray.
Hello everyone. Patience, it's good to see you. It's great to be on the journey today.
Okay, nice to have you here. Today we have a very special guest, Meryl Johnston, a chartered accountant who specializes in cloud accounting software Xero. In July 2015, she launched a Bean Ninja with co-host Ben. Hello, Meryl.
Hi, Patience. Hi, Greg. It's great to be here.
I know the client here is anxious to hear your story, so let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my client a little bit about your background, what you did before you started your business? Take us right up to the last job or business before you are online.
Sure. So I started out about 10 years ago as a young accounting graduate. So I studied a commerce degree, and then my first role was at BDO, which is an international accounting firm. And I started out in audit to get a good grounding and understanding of how business worked. So I stayed there for about 3 years and I enjoyed the work, but I found that I was working long hours and weekends and didn't feel like I had a lot of balance in my life. So once I finished my studies to become a chartered accountant, which is a bit like a CPA for US listeners, I left that job and moved to the Gold Coast, which is a beachside city in Australia, so that I could combine surfing with a career. But the role I took was at a company that owned a group of airports and related aviation businesses. And I found the same thing happening. So again, I was working late nights to meet deadlines. I was working on the weekend, and I hadn't really achieved my goal of achieving that balance in my life. So in 2013, I left that job and started up my own business. And that was an accounting consulting business called MCJ Consulting. And it started out well. I was working a little bit, I was surfing a lot, and over time I built up a client base and things were going well. After about a year, I decided that I wanted to grow that business. And so I looked for staff members and started taking on bigger projects. And that was when I realized that the consulting business model that I was working on had some flaws. So I was managing marketing for the business, bringing in leads, scoping projects, project delivery, managing a team. And again, I found that I was working a lot of hours, and that due to the nature of the projects I was working on, I again felt like I had to be available in the evenings and on the weekend to support clients and be there in case something went wrong with their software setup or something related to payroll. We needed to make sure that they could pay their staff. So I reflected on that business and thought about, if I was to create another business, how would I do things differently so that I could achieve my goal of growing a business and running a team, but also to have time to surf and spend time with friends and family. And so that was where the concept of Bean Ninjas came about. So in July 2015, I set up Bean Ninjas with my business partner, Ben. And the things we were looking for with that business model were, we wanted to have a recurring revenue. So rather than having project work, which you'd have a spike in cash flow when the project was completed or the milestones, but then nothing. And then you have to win another project. And so the roller coaster continued. So we wanted to have recurring revenue with customers on a subscription. And we wanted to have turn a service into a defined product and deliver that product at scale. So create systems and a team that could deliver that service, which would turn into a product without us needing to be involved. So that was back in July 2015 that we created Bean Ninjas. And now we're a team of 12, so including my business partner and I, and we have team members in Australia, the US, and the UK.
That's an amazing story. So how long did you spend overall in the more traditional accounting and consulting models that you were there?
So I've been in the industry for a bit over 10 years in total, and I've had my own business for 3 years. So I would have done 7 years as an employee, which was far too long. I mean, I don't regret anything. I think it was a great grounding, working the training that you get in working at some of those big accounting firms and big companies.
Sure.
But it wasn't the right fit for me. So I'm glad that I managed to stick it out as long as I did.
Good experience, but you like the entrepreneurial model better.
Yes, I'm much better suited to that. I love work now.
Great.
Oh, wow. Why do you do what you do?
So there's a couple of reasons. I think, as I just mentioned, I actually love business. So I love the feeling of creating something and building a team and creating a vision for that team and bringing that team on that journey. So I love, rather than doing repetitive work, I like to feel like I'm creating something new and solving a problem. And I've always loved business. My very first business was back when I was at uni. I had a tennis coaching business. So that's part of it. I just feel driven to do that. And then the other part is that as an employee, I couldn't achieve the lifestyle that I wanted. So my goals are to work less than 20 hours a week or at least have a commitment of that. I'm happy to work more if I need to, but I don't want to have to. My goal is to be able to work less than 20 hours a week and to have time to spend with friends and family and doing other things I love. And I also didn't want to be tied to a specific location. So our business runs from a remote team and we can all work from anywhere. So if I wanted to spend 2 months in Bali or 2 months in Paris, I could still do my job from there. And that was something else that I wanted to create, and probably something else that helps me to enjoy the work that I do.
You can't be worried about the business while you're out on the surfboard, is what you're saying.
Well, the idea is to create systems in a team who can take care of can take care of it, and the business can run and grow. The intention is eventually without me. It's not at that point yet. It still requires a lot of my involvement, but we've started with that end goal in mind. And so every decision that Ben and I make is based on trying to create a system that can run without us.
That sounds great. Can I pull out an Australian tidbit from you? Because I heard you say the term uni. I'm assuming that's university.
It is. Yes, university, college. Yeah.
We say college here in the States. And Patience, what is it there in Europe?
We are in the UK. We still call it uni. Yeah. Uni
Do
university.
You?
Yes.
Oh.
Because remember,
Okay.
Australia and the UK. The same.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. What should the new entrepreneurs pay attention to most when getting started with their accounting?
I think when entrepreneurs first start out with their accounting, usually they would be using a spreadsheet. So as soon as possible, I'd recommend moving to some sort of cloud accounting software. But if we go back to the spreadsheet stage, something that can really help there is making sure that all of your business purchases go through business bank accounts. Because if they go through, even if you have a credit card, it might even be in your personal name if you haven't yet got a business credit card, but you're using that one card for all business transactions. So if you then want to have a record of business expenses, you can go into that, log into online banking, pull out a report, and very easily see what you have spent. The reason that I recommend moving to cloud accounting software like Xero or QuickBooks Online as soon as you can justify the cost is that these tools have what they call bank feeds, where each day data from your bank account is fed into the accounting software. So it helps to automate the process, but it also means that you have a much more up-to-date view of how your business is going. So you can see weekly, or for some people daily, exactly what cash is coming in, what's expected to go out, and how much profit you're making. And I think that's quite important. I mean, obviously with an early stage business, the most important thing is understanding customers and understanding the problem that you're solving for them. But I think it's also important to at least have those business bank accounts set up so that you can start tracking how you're performing too.
I have to say, I think that's great advice, because One of the things, when I early on was working in the corporate environment and ran a small, very part-time consulting business on the side for IT consulting, it was very confusing to try to compile everything under we called it a doing business as business here in the States. And so trying to separate those records without having everything in one place in a business account, I think was very complex. So I think it's great advice.
Thanks. And actually, that's something that we see all the time with new businesses is a big list or pages and pages of bank transactions with it all mixed in with their personal transactions or family transactions. And it just takes hours to go through that. And also it's hard for them to see straight away if they're making money.
Yes. It's very confusing. Now, wait a second. You're saying as an entrepreneur, it's important for us to actually make money?
Well, it's funny. It's interesting. I think I've seen this myself where entrepreneurs think they're making money, but they haven't actually put the time into adding up all of their costs. And if they were to look at that, they might realize that some of the services or the products that they're selling actually aren't making money. And I think it's important to act on that information quickly rather than let 12 months go by and put your energy into a product or a service that's not actually profitable.
Very, very good advice.
Okay. But Meryl, I know I've seen and heard other accounting said they have other softwares out there. Why did you choose Xero specifically?
So back when we were launching the business, so back in just prior to July 2015, one of the decisions that we wanted or that we made for our business was we wanted to have a defined system. And so to do that, we wanted to specialize in one piece of accounting software and then have our team be experts in that software. So we did a lot of testing on different software tools before we launched the business in our previous accounting businesses. And the best two cloud accounting software tools out there at the time were Xero and QuickBooks. And we looked at the type of customers we were expecting to work with and the features that they would need and the integrations between other software like an e-commerce platform, for example, Shopify, and how that would integrate with the accounting software. And we made a decision at that time that Xero was the best tool for our potential clients. And so sometimes we have questions or customers that are already using QuickBooks who would like to work with us. And especially in the early days when we didn't have a lot of customers, it was difficult for us to say no to someone that's knocking on the door and wanted to give you money. That's hard to do. But for us, I think that helped us grow quickly was that we actually did say no and then recommended a bookkeeper who specialised in QuickBooks for those customers and just stayed focused on being Xero experts. And we're really happy. So Xero's invested a lot in research and development and improving the tool. So we're happy with the decision we made, but QuickBooks Online is also a good tool out there.
I have to admit, I have somebody handle this for both my personal business and I work in ministry as well in those environments. So is Xero a worldwide implementation? Is it unique to particular countries or stronger there or?
It is worldwide. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time for them to launch payroll in a particular country because of the complexities and different rules there, but it's in all of the major countries. It was developed in New Zealand and then the head office is in Australia. So it's hugely popular in those countries and it's also quite popular in the US and the UK, but especially in the US, QuickBooks has a much bigger market share. So I'd say that not in all cases, but in most cases, Xero is the better software for a small online business. But QuickBooks is probably more common just because it's more widely known in the US.
Oh, I appreciate the comparison.
Okay. So let's put man aside. How did you know your business was successful?
I think when we started out, we set particular milestone goals. And so by achieving those goals, we know we're on the way to success. So I still wouldn't necessarily say I feel successful. I feel like I'm on the path to achieving success. But maybe I've had friends say that I probably just keep on resetting those goals as soon as I achieve them. So for us, our first milestone was that we wanted to hit 100,000 annual revenue or annual recurring revenue. So we only really track people that are on monthly subscriptions, not people that are paying for Xero setups or for catch-up jobs. Then our next milestone was to hit 20,000 monthly recurring revenue, which we have done. And the next one was to become a 7-figure business. So over $1 million in annual turnover. So we're on track. We're hoping that we'll achieve that within the next 18 months, but it might be 18 months to 2.5 years. So they were our revenue goals, but they were also balanced with lifestyle goals in terms of not working too many hours and having a team that was really invested in what we were doing and that we enjoy working with and who enjoy working with us. That's a little bit harder to track, but because our team's still fairly small at the moment, we get a good sense of how everyone's going.
Good. So you don't track those with hard metrics, for example, the lifestyle pieces, or do you?
So the lifestyle piece we do, so we track our own hours. So
okay.
I keep a timesheet, and I mean, most people keep it. I partly do it for data because I want to know where I'm spending my time and how I can optimize my day. So at what time should I be working on certain tasks, and when should I be working on certain tasks, and how long are they taking me, and should I even be doing that? So I use it partly for data, but also to make sure I'm not working too many hours. So I can easily see, I worked 45 hours this week. Well, that's not ideal. That's why was that necessary? Is there something we need to change in the business that caused that to happen?
Very good. Yeah, it's always good to hear when, and I'm sure you've heard it time and time again when you talk to entrepreneurs, that particularly those that are starting out, that really have no idea how much time they're investing on things or what they're spending it on.
Yes. And I think coming from an accounting firm, we're used to tracking time. So I don't find it too difficult because it's habit. But I think if you haven't come from that background, I actually recommend it as an experiment to do just for a week or two. And I think the results would surprise most people in terms of where you're actually spending your time. I
wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
Okay. So what is the bean ninja and how did you come up with the idea? Because when you say beans, I think it's coffee.
I actually get that a lot. So we have Bean Ninjas t-shirts that we wear around the place. And sometimes if I go into a cafe, someone will think that I'm there to review their coffee. So they try hard to make me a nice coffee.
Can I get one of those shirts then?
Absolutely. So the name came about. So as I said, in July 2015, my business partner and I had decided that we wanted to work together, and we'd put together our co-founder agreement. We'd had all of the difficult conversations around what would we do if one of us wanted to exit and how would we handle all of that. So we'd had that mapped out, and then he flew up to the Gold Coast to spend a week together. And so we gave ourselves 1 week to launch the business, including coming up with a business name and creating a website, designing a logo, and also trying to find our first customer. So we had done some initial chatting about what kind of name we wanted, and traditional accounting firms, so mine was called MCJ Consulting and Ben's was called McAdam & Co. And they're traditional accounting names, and we definitely didn't want a name like that. We wanted something that showed that we were more of a startup and that we're innovative and had a different way of thinking about things to traditional accountants. And we also wanted a name that reflected something to do with accounting, so bean counters. And so we brainstormed. We didn't give ourselves a lot of time to pick a name, and Bean Ninjas was available and we could get the .com, and at the time we liked it, but we didn't love the name, and then it's grown on us. So now we really like it, and it feels like we've created a brand around Bean Ninjas. So if I sometimes go to an event, no one knows who Meryl Johnston is, but if I say I'm from Bean Ninjas, then they say, I've heard of you guys. Which is what we want.
I kind of like that. Yeah, so most of your clients, I'm just curious. I mean, based on the startup kind of persona, are most of your clients smaller in nature? Are you handling large corporations as well? Or?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So my background is with large corporations. And when I was doing consulting, I was working with big business.
Mm-hmm.
And with B Ninjas, we work with small business and micro businesses and startups. So often it might just be a founder or maybe, and they have a business partner or a co-founder. They might have a couple of staff members. Often they'll have a remote team somewhere like the Philippines or in Eastern Europe. So they're small businesses, and most of them have only been operating for 2 to 5 years. So they're fairly new businesses as well. And we love working with businesses like that. So they're in a growth phase. The founders are really motivated and engaged with what they're doing. And so they're fun to work with. And it's interesting. That was actually a criteria. So at the 6-month mark, we reflected on all of our customers, and we looked at the profitability of each customer, but we also looked at who we enjoyed working with and which of our customers felt like they were receiving value from what we were doing, and then going and telling their friends and recommending us. And so it was this particular market of the small, usually online businesses, founders where the business was only 2 to 5 years old. We were enjoying working with those kind of businesses. They were usually more profitable for us, and also they loved what we were doing and telling other people. So it was only at about the 6-month mark that we found our niche.
I think it's an excellent model, and it's interesting to me because it mirrors my background a little bit. I worked for 20 years managing very large projects online for companies to make money online, and then moved into the online space myself, and then began to teach others how to do that. So I find it attractive to have somebody with your both corporate background that has the experience of how to move a company in a larger direction if they want to go, but dealing with the smaller companies and the startups is more attractive, certainly initially, even though you may want to grow with the business over time.
Exactly. And I think our intention is that hopefully a lot of these businesses, they have nice growth curves and trajectories, and we hope that we can grow with them, and having that bigger experience with bigger businesses, that we can set up their accounting systems so that they can scale up as well as their business does.
That's great. I'll put in a good plug on you. For you. Yes. Just for that reason.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Oh, all right. Meryl, you've been in business for a long time, since your uni time and the college and all the way. Can anyone be an entrepreneur, or some people are more cut out than others?
I think anyone can be. And I think being an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily mean that you have to quit your job immediately and go and launch a risky tech startup. I think that it's possible, even while working full time, and even if you have a family to support, that you can start something small on the side and learn from that. So build your skills, learn how to talk with customers and understand their pain points, and come up with a solution for those customers. Learn how to market yourself or your product. And I think over time, gradually, as you build your skills, all of that is building you becoming an entrepreneur. So I think that anyone can do it, and that I think it can sometimes feel like it's a big risk to start a business, but there are ways of testing the water and having a go without having to leave your job or invest a lot of money. And I highly recommend it as a career path. So I'd love to see more people just having a go and trying something.
That's good suggestions. I like that.
Okay. So, Mary, you've been in business, as I said, for a long time. Do you have a mentor?
I don't have a specific mentor, as in a one-on-one mentor, but I am part of some different mastermind groups. So every fortnight, I talk with a group of other bookkeeping firm owners. So we talk about issues related to our business, and some of them have much bigger businesses than what we do. So they're not direct mentors, but I'm learning from people within that group. And then I'm also in a different mastermind of people who run online businesses or productised services, which is so a similar business model to us, but not in bookkeeping. And so there we talk about things related to managing a remote team, leadership, marketing. So not so much around bookkeeping, but around running a business generally. Then I'm also part of 3 online communities where, again, it's not one-on-one mentoring, but people within I can post questions within the groups, and then I'll get feedback from some really smart people. These are paid communities, so there's entrepreneurs usually have to have a business of a certain size sometimes to get into these communities, and I have found those very effective and useful.
So that's good. I'm sorry, Patience, you were going to go on with another question. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to know what feedback have you got from there that made a really big difference in your business?
All right, so
only one.
Only one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll pick one that relates to this podcast. So at the beginning of this year, I posted a question that said, how do I get a podcast interview? No one wants to talk to me about bookkeeping or accounting. And I wrote a whole lot of background about what approaches I'd been trying. And because at that point I hadn't been on a single podcast interview. And I mean, now I try and do one every couple of weeks. And so in that post, I got a lot of feedback from people about who they actually made some introductions. They suggested podcasts that I might have an interesting story, or I might be able to help. What I could talk about would be related to their audience. So that actually probably really helped us get some traction with doing podcast interviews. So that's something that I thought of off the top of my head.
That's excellent. I think, both mentors and masterminds can be a tremendous source of input to save you some time and effort, where you think of it as a stumbling block, but the path was probably very clear once a couple of introductions were made and they kind of introduced you to a couple of sites probably that you could find resources on.
Yeah, absolutely. And also a couple of introductions for my first couple of podcast interviews. And once I had those, and a couple were reasonably high profile, then I could then go to other podcasts and say, well, I've been on this is what we talked about, this is how my message might relate to your audience.
Oh, great.
Okay, what is the most valuable thing you have ever given away?
So, yes, I always... This is a tricky question, but I think, so my time. So I do believe that time is valuable, and I do invest that in other people. So I've had interns that have come and worked for me at MCJ, and I've tried to help them get a kickstart with their career. And then I also use my time to, mainly with close friends and family, to be there for them and to help them with whatever I can.
That's good. Time is valuable.
Okay. Where do we find you if we want to get in contact with you?
So our website, Being Ninjas, is BEAN ninjas.com. And we also have the same Instagram and Twitter handle.
Okay, so Kalani, here will be more from Meryl in a moment. If you are finding Meryl's journey interesting and you are ready to hear more, come and listen to the full version of the interview at onlinesuccessjourney.com. If you are already on Online Success Journey, click on part 2 of Meryl's journey and you'll get more great tips to help you with your business counting. And don't forget, you can also access other online success interview podcasts on the journey as well. So that's a wrap, clan. Remember, success is a journey. Patience, Greg, and Meryl join us in part 2 at onlinesuccessjourney.com.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to part 1 and want to be sure you know there is a second part to this and every journey podcast at onlinesuccessjourney.com, filled with even more success tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. There are dozens of episodes only available to the members of the Online Success Journey clan. Check out the website and click on Join the Clan for more information. Patience would like to thank you for listening to this podcast, and she has a free audio gift for you at her website. Go to onlinesuccessjourney.com for instant access to this gift. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps each of us chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the online success journey and to listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review it at Stitcher and other sites by clicking the stars or completing the ratings form, by clicking the thumbs up and leaving a comment on YouTube, or liking and sharing the podcast on social media. To review the podcast within iTunes, simply open iTunes to the podcast, click on Ratings and Reviews, then write a review. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.